All right, hold on, guys. And what's going on, everybody? The Metal Dad is here again, and I'm here as always with Turbo.
Hey,
what's going on, Turbo?
All kinds of stuff downtown. Big rally going on.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're going to get into that after we introduce our special guest tonight here, Todd Holmes, good brother of mine that I've been learning a lot of spiritual work with. Never served with, but we were in the same regiment together. At some point, he's done a lot of other crazier shit that I've never done. And he's here. He's going to share his musical knowledge with us and you and whoever else is around. And I'm going to turn it over to him so he can introduce himself properly. It's all up to you now, buddy.
Well, it is. And really one of the best things is to say is that I'm just an ordinary guy. And that's something that I've learned to become. Because in becoming ordinary is really you become extraordinary, or other people could say extraordinary. Through humbleness and just learning. And life has taught me through humbleness to really kind of get on this spiritual path. So this wasn't always me. I was a very hard-charging paratrooper, very focused young man that went from private and retired as a captain. I was one of the tours. I was in Afghanistan 2008, 2009, 2010. I was in Bosnia in the 90s. I spent 6 years as a firefighter. I've been a military diver, and I was in a special forces unit in a nuclear biochemical warfare unit. And can't really go too much into that detail on that, but yeah. So I've had a variety of a background. I retired as a captain down here in Moncton, and I'm a New Brunswicker by choice. Most of my family is from Dublin, Ireland, and they're still there. The rest of my family's either in Ontario or up in Northern Ontario in Marathon. And we have basically during these 60 scoops, the Irish part of my family kind of got mixed in with the Ojibwe nation up there. So, and so have some of that roots into, and that's where I'm from now. So I just live here in Ormocto with my wife and my two children, and live a very ordinary, simple life. And generally is what I do is I'm a life coach, but I don't, not really using that. I'm also a yogi. I've been shaman. I've been on the spiritual journey for actually about 20 years when I met my first teacher. And now it just happened that I work with vets. I work with people who are coming out of the criminal system or the penal system and going back through the halfway houses. I've also been working with the elders, First Nations, drug addictions, and all that kind of stuff. And just basically somewhat of a nonprofit in that sense, nothing to make money or anything else, but just people that kind of end up in my path, and it seems to happen more often than not. And I had a business before, prior to COVID, where I was working with vets, and I was a spokesman for Canada Connect, and I was traveling around the world, in the Himalayas. I was teaching nurses and doctors over there my yoga techniques and different breathing methods and that. Yeah. And but everything's kind of, with COVID, everything had to be relooked at. And so I also relooked at myself, and one of my spirit animals that I work with is actually the groundhog, and the groundhog is all about hibernating, right? So, and really rebuilding myself. And so, while this has been going on, I've been really doing a lot of inner reflection and kind of rebuilding myself, and also learning to stand in my own truth and my own power. And really that's in becoming as ordinary and as simple as I can, because it's in the simpleness I find just the beauty of life, such as also my musical journey, right? So that's where I'm at these days, and that's kind of really sums me up as best I can.
And you're a groundhog, eh?
Yeah, groundhog, fox, crow. They're different, right? Because there's different animals and there's different spirits. So when you look at totem spirits and you look at spirits, how we work with is that we have the four-leggeds, the winged brothers, the tree spirits, the hidden peoples, all that kind of stuff. We have different teachings that, generally it's, especially here in New Brunswick, right? This is Sam Squatch is one of our friends.
Yeah.
More sightings here than anywhere else. And
is that right? Because I got really interested in that. Not to cut you off, but
yeah.
And during my digging sort of thing, I found it really hard to find anything from New Brunswick. But I found an old, I don't know what you call it, but I remember when I was, my 1 year in university in 95 or whatever.
Yeah.
And we'd have the internet at school, but it was all just kind of like, I don't know, like Reddit is now, I guess. And I found an old thread from the 90s, and it was these sightings of Sasquatch all in New Brunswick, but that's all I could find. So I've been asking people. So
there is a few. So the literature I found recently too. So I was showing it to the kids because, as you know, children can challenge anything you say, right? Yeah. That's really I call my children really are my biggest gurus, right? Because they're quality control. They're always poking at you. You could say, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm walking the spiritual path," but then deal with your kids. You're like, "Oh my gosh, how can I do this?" Right? So, and my guru has taught me, because in my philosophy and our philosophy that we go through in yoga and that I've gone through a journey of reincarnation. So there's been many lives I've spent as a monk, and there's been many lives I've spent as a yogi already. So this life, it's to be the family, right? Because I have to polish off the diamond. I'm on the diamond path in what we do. So I have to have family. I have to go through these experiences. It's very easy to be a monk and chant and be spiritual and not have the stresses of dealing with the family and the house and everything else. So this is part of my own, kind of as the guru has said, this is part of my dharma, my life path. This part is be a family, but also bring spirituality to the family.
Wow.
And yeah, so all of this, and so my walk has been really working with these vets and doing these things, and that's where we're at with that. But yeah, so
Interesting. So, what did you see? What I found, because it just piqued my interest, because I was recently I got pretty sick there for a while. But before I got sick, one of the things was a guy I work with. I was watching these Les Stroud things, and about he had a series, Survivor Man, and he had the series on Sasquatch, and it was kind of an interesting one, and it was kind of neat. He had a whole different take on it. Well, because he didn't have a take on it, so he just talked to a bunch of people, and it was a lot of different experiences that I'd never really thought about. And anyways, but a buddy of mine, and he goes, yeah, man, I saw one when I was a kid in Bathurst. And their story was there was a bunch of the kids all out picking berries across the street from his house, and the babysitter was there. And they looked up, and one of the kids went, "What's that thing?" And there's this great big giant ape-looking thing. They figured, well, they're just little children. They must have been like, 4 to say the babysitter was 14. I think there was 5 of them or something. Anyways, and so he's like, maybe it was 8 feet tall, to a little kid. It was giant, bigger than dad, right? That's how a kid would describe it. Well, that's a pretty good description. Bigger than dad. Well, it's bigger than an adult, right? Kids know. And it kind of looked at them, and they were looking at it. It was sort of the way he described it was surprised. Like, it didn't know they were there. And it was kind of like everyone's going, okay, what do we do, right? And the babysitter grabbed the littlest kid and threw them over the fence and said, "Run!" And they all ran. But they never talked about it ever until they got to be adults. So interesting, eh?
Well, who's going to listen, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just a made-up story in that. But in tribal knowledge, right? So in proper guru speak in this, and I've been around the world, and we have these sightings too in the Himalayas, right?
Sure.
They respect the energies of these beings, and just, it's one thing that we can say that I love in Buddhist philosophy that I found in the Himalayas and up in the monasteries and that is that they see life as much bigger, because as humans we're very ignorant and arrogant that we think we're the only creatures on this level, right?
Yeah.
And that's because we resonate in a certain sound frequency, we see in a certain frequency, and so we think that this is what it is.
Yeah.
But there's different vibrational frequencies, and there's a theory that they have that they explained to me that their pineal gland's a little bit different, more crystalline than us, so they could actually phase in and phase out. So that's one of the theories on Sam Squatch itself. So
and there's a lot of talk of that is starting to come out more and more now too. Yeah.
Well, of course, because I think a lot of it is that, and when I've traveled, is that a lot of mystery schools. So my family goes back through masonry and everything else, right? Not that I'm a mason or anything else. Right. I want nothing to do with it. But there's a lot of secrets and stuff that have been passed on. And unfortunately, everybody's got a keyhole that they're looking for through, and only a part of it. It's like a mirror of truth, right?
Yeah.
That broke up in all these shards, and people pick it up and they look at it.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important that when we're in this time of information and misinformation and information overload on Sasquatch and everything else that's coming at you, it's very important to get in that heart space, as I was saying, and find your boundaries for truth. Right. But be open to things, right? Because as soon as I say something, I say, I know this and this is fact, I've created a wall.
Yep.
Right. But when I say, I don't know, I create possibility for something else to come in and maybe teach me what I don't know yet. So everything I don't know, but the teachings lead that these beings are here and something else is here. People have cited them and everything else, all anecdotal. That's fine. My own experience that I feel in my heart, I'm open to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I think where true knowledge comes is not just saying, okay, this is my boundary and this is my limit, the bubble I'm going to live in, but rather say, well, I don't know. because there's
Yeah.
power in saying I don't know, but I'm open to seeing what comes of this. And that's
Well, to someone to say, you know what, that's nonsense. Forget about it. You could say, okay, well, why have people been talking about it forever? Why are all these pictures of it? Why are all these stories? They keep coming out.
yeah,
That's
really.
There's got to be something.
What if?
Could they all be bears? Like, well, that could be a possibility, but there's lots of stories. There's a lot more stories about bears, and there's a lot of more pictures of bears where they're clearly bears. So that doesn't work, and you can only have so many things where you have to just go, okay, you
Well-
have to admit we don't have the whole picture here. Right?
Yeah,
or at
and
least
that's
science doesn't,
important,
right?
Yeah, right. So it's saying I don't know, leaves open possibility
Yeah.
to one day discovering. Because as soon as you say no, that's not a possibility, because you got to think how the brain works, right? So because the eyes, for instance, I'm a bit of a mystic. So where do you see me sitting right now?
Sitting right
Yeah,
now,
right now,
just
where
in
am
front
I?
of me in the chair. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what logically we would say,
right.
what it is. But you, where do you see the image of me right now?
Ah, right. Yeah, that's in here.
Exactly, right? Because your eyes are just cameras.
Yeah,
Right. So
exactly.
you're making an image up in this. So it's all an inner experience, right?
Right.
Even hearing is an inner experience.
Mm.
And this is where the truth is very important, is to get into your heart cave or to go into your heart. We say the Nada Brahma, the Anahata chakra. Anahata means the unstruck note,
Okay.
right? So when you strike that note, the original sound, the creator, the source, everything, right?
Mhm.
Pure consciousness, if you will. That's what we would call the Amahitapa, right? So it's a
Okay.
consciousness that lives inside of you, and that's the magnetism, right? Because I studied at the Heart Math Institute,
Okay.
and when I studied there,
Beautiful place.
yeah, it's fantastic. And we're talking about the heart on the MRI. We know produces magnetism,
Mhm.
so 1.5 meters out. So it's your little personal.
Okay, yeah.
So we can measure this. So there's a magnetism, and basically in a magnetic field is a torrid. It's always a torrid, and as in the torrid, as above, so below, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And this torrid, in the center of any torrid is a single photon of light,
Okay.
right? And that's your source. That's the source that you're connected to on some level. I'm not asking you to understand it, right? Because our brains can't understand. That's why, like, I'm very big in Taoist philosophy as well.
I
Because
just
like
saw
it.
it in my mind's eye.
Yeah, because when you say about the Tao, right? When I talk about the Tao and then I name something, well, then it's no longer the Tao. Because as soon as I've given it a name, it's no longer what it is, right? So if you come into my philosophies, that we could say first there was the void, if you want to go Christian on us, right? But it was just all darkness. And then comes the spark, right? Or the rouge, or the initial sound, the initial vibration. I was talking about Pythagoras. He theorized that everything is moving, so therefore everything must create a sound, just because we can't hear it.
Right.
And there's sound. So the universe is light and sound and magnetism, right?
Yep.
1971. Dr. Dennis Gabor won the Nobel Prize in Physics for creating the first hologram. And what he was able to do is, through the spectrum of light and mirrors and sound and everything, create a full hologram, right?
Mhm.
So that whole experience, you see me in a holographic image, and you
Right.
hear me in this holographic image.
Yeah.
This rings to simulation theory, but simulation theory, quantum physics, string theory, though it's falling apart, it's all coming back together to why we used to have religion, to try to explain what we can't. And it gets that bit of the confusion, right?
Yeah.
So so from Sasquatch to all the way to the magnetic of your heart, to that center, that spark that's you, to the sound, the original sound that's in your heart, the anahat.
You want to bring her down a notch, boys?
Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, but
that was almost like we're having a conversation at a bar. This reminds me like 2 years ago.
yeah, when I used to be able, I was allowed to go out.
yeah, man.
Yeah,
Really, eh?
Yeah, I haven't been out. I haven't been out for a
Keep
while.
playing. Just stop hitting the dead note.
Yeah.
We've made the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny, eh? But that's interesting. I find that fascinating. I'm kind of just restarting my yoga journey again. It's
We
been-
always
it's
start
been
with
fun.
Patanjali, right? Because he was in his 40s and he wrote the best book of everything you ever need on yoga is written by Patanjali. He lived about 3,500 years ago.
Oh,
And
wow.
the first sutra of yoga says, now yoga. Because he went through everything, psychedelics, drug, like everything. He just tried everything in his life and it just didn't work for him, right? Like he didn't get there. So he said, all right, let's try something else. And it was all about yoga. now this is a lot of what I was doing too, because when I first started working with veterans, I really worked on this masculine energy because it's what I was familiar with, right? Methodology, right? Like Wim Hof, go freeze my nuts off, sort of thing, and really that kind of engagement. But I realized that a lot of these veterans were broken by this masculine energy. So I switched my approach. So I've been using music and musical notes and mantras and stuff like that, and showing people how to use sound healing and everything to change your frequency, right? Because your frequency is in your heart. So that spark of light is resonating at a certain frequency that you stand there, right? That's why. And so I was saying before, in a Buddhist kind of belief, we have an angry ghost realm, right? So if a person commits suicide, they're in such an angry state and they kill themselves. Well, that consciousness will be at a certain frequency, and now you no longer have a heart to change that, right? So it will take a while for your frequency to kind of chill off. So it'd be a hellish-like state.
Wow.
For a while till you get back to, you could then be reborn into a body where you match your frequency with, that you can come back to Earth for another journey and all that kind of stuff. So you could be stuck out there for thousands of years, with the Dalai Lama and these kind of people would teach, right? And that sort of stuff, right? So we have this psychopomp work where we could actually use our voices and connect with pictures of these people and stuff, so we could attract the spirits around and help them change their frequency, right? So we could raise them up enough so that they could change forward, right? So a lot of that sound work and stuff like that. So when I was learning my yoga and the shamanic path and Patanjali and all that kind of stuff, because yoga is in North America is unfortunately not understood, because a yogi is like a shaman, right? I'm a devotee of the Adi Yogi, so the first yogi, right? So about 15,000 years ago, we don't know really when, but this is what's assumed. This man walked down from the mountains, and it was pretty civilized back then. And he sat there under a tree for 3 months with his eyes closed, not eating, not doing anything else and everything. And at first people thought it was pretty cool, but most people just got bored and walked away. But there were 7 people that stayed there with him. And those 7 people, when he opened his eyes, he said they wanted to learn, and he laughed at them. And he said, no. So he walked away. Came back 84 years later and realized that they'd still been practicing. So he decided to teach them. And they're the first 7 yogis, or the 7 Buddhist medicine Buddhas, all this kind of stuff that comes through. So the 7 rishis, all that stuff. So there's 7 original teachings from this person.
Was it you that I was going over that with? The 7 schools of yoga?
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Yeah, I got them written down.
I was
here.
looking at. I've been watching it, doing yoga. Got a new job finally, my first job since I got sick in 6 months.
Nice.
So working at a gym and exercising, getting my body back. And I decided, well, I'm got to get up in the morning, so I do yoga every morning now. And it's great. But as well, I was watching a series about the different types of yoga. So yeah, that's what we were talking about that. But there's one of the ones about mythology, and that number 7 comes up a lot.
Well, it does, right? Well, look
chakras.
At 7 chakras, 7 musical notes, right?
Right.
7 primary colors in the spectrum, right? It's always 7. 777 books in the real Bible, right?
Wow.
Right, that were taken out. There's 711 books hidden under the Vatican that they've never allowed you to see.
711 hidden. Wow.
Yeah. So they have 33.
Those were all my rants.
And 33, right? That's the Freemason numbers, because the Freemason took over, and then it's all patriarchal control, right?
Which is also 33 vertebrae in your spine that the Kundalini has to travel up.
Yeah. So
3, 6, and 9.
3, 6, and 9. Tesla. There we go. Right. The answers to the universe. Right.
Yeah. Wait. We didn't put our fucking hats on, guys.
Well,
Jesus.
We haven't even got 10.
We're not even close to that.
Yeah, this is Sam Scratch.
You can watch this on YouTube.
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah, we're not even there yet.
Before we keep going there, I just want to let everybody know that Flynn's in the background playing bass as always. We didn't even get to introducing there Mr. Flynn.
Yeah. Hey, Flinny.
He plays the bass in the background and is walking us through the woods. All right. So, Todd, can you go through the 7 sounds?
Yeah. Well, hold on. Before we go to the 7 sounds, let's start with 3, right? Because 3 is very sacred. So it's
I'll let you do you then.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So 3 sounds. So there's 3 sounds that every animal could make on this planet. Mouth fully open. Ah. Mouth closed, almost slightly open. Ooh. Mouth fully closed. Mm. Put the 3 together, and we make Aum. The ah sound reverberates right here at your heaven gates chakra, right here. So creative, right? Creative, right? Ooh is in your heart, right here. Ooh, and then that's the Holy Trinity of sound, right? Otherwise known as the proton, the neutron, and the electron.
I gotta write some of this down.
Yeah.
AUM.
AUM. AUM. It's creative. Ooh. It's like a baby, right? They love you. They go, ooh, ooh, ooh. They're talking from their heart, right? Ooh. And then is your power, right? That's the home.
Who's the creative? What's the ah?
The is creative. So right? Like
The first three
you're
chakras.
created, right? And then ooh, like
the
a
middle
baby
ground.
coos, right? It's like ooh, it's the love. It hits the anahat chakra. Yeah, that's love.
Midgard.
Or you could say that's the neutron, right? It's the magnetism that holds it together. Is the proton the creative? Right? Metaphysics, right? Or quantum physics, metaphysics. We're talking about there's a destructive force, a creative force, and a neutral force, right? There's 3 sounds. So those 3 sounds set you up. If you say those 3 sounds together, it makes the universal sound of the universe. That sound set under a sonogram with sand, and you can look this up, will make a beautiful pattern, right? And that sound will change your energy of all your cellular, because that magnetic field that I was talking about that you are, this is what it's affecting, right? So this is almost that 5th element that you're not really taking into account, and that's that frequency that you want to resonate with.
Right.
And so this frequency itself will help change the energies that you've had. That's why, like, you want to sing, and through any scriptures or anything else. And I don't deny scriptures, because I love the Vedas. I've read almost everything, right? From the Quran, everything else. I've studied the Bible, all that kind of stuff. But in that, you always see sound and praise and joy. You know, you go back to the Egyptians and the Temple of Hathor, and their healing temples of sound and all this kind of stuff. So sound is a big element. So those are the 3 sounds. But then each chakra, and what's a chakra? Chakra really actually means triangle. You see them as circles, because if I throw anything like a pebble, whatever shape it is, into a water, it's going to make a circle, right? Same thing with the chakra. So that triangle, and you have 114 chakras in total in your body, 112 inside the system. But there's 7 major levels of these chakras, 7 major points. And the first one starts right at the base, and that's your root chakra. We'll call it this. And in the root, that's a red chakra. And that's your base chakra, and that sound to it, it has its own frequency, is made as lum. Lum. L-U-M. L-U-M. Yeah, lum. And you want to visualize red when you're making that sound to really kind of open that chakra up, right? Okay. Lum. And then you move up to your creative chakra, which is yellow, and its sound is with a V. Vum. 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 And then we move up to the orange chakra, the solar plexus, the solar chakra. And that's orange. And we say rum, like the drink. Rum. Then we move to the heart. And we focus on green, the color green. And we say the sound with a Y. Yum. Yum. Then we move to the throat, at the pit of the throat. And we just think of blue, bright blue. And we say hum, like humming, hum. And then we, on the third eye, which is the feminine chakra, the mother chakra, we say om, like we did. So it's the om sound, right? And this is an indigo kind of violetly colored chakra. And then we focus right on your soft spot, the top of your head here, and you're going to color deep purple. And then that sound's going to be more of an ah-um. So an ah with an M at the end. A-H-M, right? So you're making an sound. So all sounds are sacred. Feminine sounds in Sanskrit. So I speak Sanskrit, and that's what I usually do most of my sounds in. It's really a language that's almost, it's probably the oldest language on the planet. And it has 18 vowels in it, right? Compared to our 5. So 18 vowels, because they understood there's so many chakras and different ways to connect. So for instance, there's 16 petals on your throat chakra. So there's
Wow.
16 sounds to that. That would be om, yim, yum, rum, rim, ayam, aha, ahem. These sounds. And so this is all what we would call tantric practice, right? When you really learn to open up your different chakras and these different colors. There's more apps in this human body, is what I teach people, than there is on your cell phones, right? You know, like data transfer. Elon Musk talks about all this stuff, you know, and they're like, what's NASA got? Like 91 gigs per minute they could download or whatever else. But you think about it, during copulation, a man and a woman, in a single sperm, there's 37 megabytes of information. So during sex, there's almost 15,884 gigabytes of information transferred in 3 seconds. That's the intelligence just in this system, in this body, right? That we cannot match yet. That we cannot. Again, when I was
Man is not smarter, or nature is smarter than man.
well, it is because it's the Tao, right? It's the Tao unwinding to its frequency. It doesn't have a problem with it. It's the Tao. It's unfolding to the Fibionic frequency, right? And that's really what we're doing, is we're moving the frequency of Fibionic frequency to pi, right? Because pi and Fibionic frequency, when they meet in the heart chakra, what we call the Shushama chakra, it creates enlightenment because it opens up your kind of heart, right? This is what, because enlightenment, all it simply is the old Zen proverb: before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah.
It's just a change of perspective. It's
Either
a
way,
change
you're
of
chopping wood
mindset.
and carrying water.
It's where you're enlightened because you're not carrying all the burdens of your lower energies anymore, right?
Yeah.
We got a full moon coming. My master would always say, you know, it's a very important time to open up your higher chakras, because whatever's open at the full moon is going to be absorbed. So if you're like stuck in your lower stuff, and it's like the lower energies of, say, fear and lust and anger and stuff like that, and you come in the full moon, that's what's going to be absorbed, right? But you get up into your heart, you get up into your singing, your throat, your mother chakra, and your crown chakra, then you know that's what's going to be receptive. It's basically, it's like you want these ones widely open to absorb that kind of energy,
Right.
in that sense, right? So yeah,
Wow.
those are the sounds. Yeah.
Neat. Well, I can write a song out of that for sure.
Chew on,
Just that alone.
chew on that, YouTube.
Yeah. No, it's chakras themselves, sounds are sacred, right? You know, everything that goes. So, for instance, I walk and I sing every day to the trees and the hidden people and everything else in the morning with my dog. It's part of my practice. So, in my belief system, it's basically you have faith, you have your vows, and you have your practice. So in my practice, it's just basically mantras and things I do, because I'm always working on myself, so that way I can share what works with me and where I was, because I was suicidal. I was broken down. I was at a place where I couldn't even fill my car up with gas.
Really?
Yeah, I was really broken. The PTSD had hit. I was locked up. So I went on this journey, and my journey led me to the Himalayas and into Nepal. And I have an ashram there now.
Oh,
And,
wow.
oh yeah, I have a family I've been supporting all the way through this, and a business partner. We've just switched to small farming because I'm working on.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's just different things that we're working on. But it was that, and also 27 friends that I had lost to suicide, and 29 now in total. Really, I keep having to tell myself that. But yeah, it was, and it was a lot of pain. So and a lot of suffering. I just came from my own suffering, my own pain, and I was just like, what can I do? And I realized I couldn't do anything, to tell you the truth. That's what happens. I was just working with a guy that OD'd the other day, and I was just like, yeah, well, I have a responsibility to take people. You could take a horse, show it water, you know what I mean? But you're not going to make it drink, right? Yeah. So in that sense, that's that safeness of the boundaries that I'm talking about. You got to have boundaries when you're working in that kind of environment and stuff, right? Because at the same people are walking their own path just as you're walking yours. Yeah. And we all walk in our paths, and we have that freedom that we're entitled to walk our path. So I try to walk it in a sense of compassion now and understanding, where be of service to the moment, service of that love, service of this. And so I switched that whole path to a feminine kind of path, because what I went into before was that the masculine energy was making people sick. It was that environment, right? So if a fish is sick in a tank, am I going to just keep giving this fish, or do I change the environment as well, right? Exactly. So I switched to a more feminine thing. So something I'm going to be doing with Brian this summer actually is we're going to be going up to Mount Carlton, and we're going to be doing some fasting and doing some hiking, and then coming back and doing some singing.
Super excited for that.
Yeah, and
Fuck
some
yeah,
drumming too. So I like to use the drumming.
Okay.
I do a lot of native drumming and a lot of native songs.
Remember we were talking about that? He's who I was going to talk to about trying to get us sorted out for
For
native
the-
drumming. Remember Wes was bringing it up?
yeah.
Okay, I'm working on some skins for us.
For our
Yeah,
little
yeah.
group.
So yeah, we definitely do that, and the drumming itself, right? So sorry, where was I with that?
We're going up to Mount Carlton.
Oh, yeah,
we're going
Mount-
to do Mount Fast. We're
Yeah.
going to do Mount Fasting.
Yeah, I was in the EMDR part, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
So what I like about drumming, and the Marine Corps has really done this on sweat lodges and stuff for PTSD, and the drumming itself. So EMDR basically is a therapy to kind of get people to work through the problems. So what I want to do is take people out in nature and just ask a couple questions, right? And just let them go in nature and solve their own answers. And we come back, and we play music, and we drum around the fire, and we sing, and we have a good time. And I tell stories, right? Because if I tell somebody something, and if I don't know what their belief system is, it might just they'll resist it. And when you resist, persists, right? So what I like to do is I like to give that focus where I tell a story because it reaches the person behind them, and they can heal themselves, right? Because we're all our own healers. We have to take back ownership and power over so many ways in our life. If anything's taught us in the last 2 years, it's how much power we've given away, right? Autonomy over everything, autonomy over the medical, autonomy over this, autonomy, whatever your choices are. That's your choice.
I don't want to make the decision. You do it for me.
Yes, and that's it. We got to take our power.
Total
back,
submissive.
Right? This is it.
It's strange because I've seen thinking of some parallels as you're talking about that, experience with the fellas, and you can show them the way. And yeah, there's a lot of people out there, and people I really respect too, like really respect and look up to, and really did look up to a lot more before. I guess I still do look up to them because it's just, I guess now you see that I'm seeing this other side of them. That,
Not I.
They were really intelligent and really knowledgeable and wise, and yet for some reason that they just can't see what's going on with this situation, with these mandates and vaccines and the what's going on and how and I don't know why.
Well, it's
They've given up that autonomy. I mean, it's easier. I don't know.
It's a giant psyop, right? So when I worked in that sort of stuff, and
There are switches you can turn on and off in the human brain.
yeah, so there's 3 ways that we knew we could control a population when I was in the military, and we keep them in fear, or we keep them apathetic, or we keep them angry, right?
Right.
And so right now we got everybody angry, so they're all under
Rule of
government
3.
control, right?
Yeah.
And remember, and that's what I love, like, remember Yoda, man. Anger leads to what? Anger leads to hatred. Hatred leads to suffering, right? So when they're angry, and I was saying this to the elders the other day because they're quite angry lately, let's just say. And I was having this. I go, remember though, if you're angry, you're under their control, right? Because you got to raise up into your heart and find compassion and stuff. Because I don't know why they don't get it. Like it blows my mind, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what happened here, and why don't we see this? But at the same time,
Fluoride.
compassion, right? This I was reading about this Tibetan monk that just floored my when the Chinese took over and occupied Tibet. They were beating him, and his only worry was that he would lose compassion for the guy that was beating him.
Yeah.
And some of that is what I also believe, right? For instance, Jesus, Yeshua would say, turn the other cheek. But you got to also remember that in the context of the time, right? Because during that time, if I would slap you, I was allowed to slap my servants or my children or my wife with the back of my hand, right? So if I slapped you with this side of the hand and you turn your other cheek, well, you've now subdued me. You've defended yourself. I can't hit you with this side. Okay. So there's always metaphors and parables and different teachings,
interesting.
Right? Yeah. So he gives you a right to defend yourself, right?
Yeah, that takes a whole other spin on it, doesn't it?
It does. When you really look at these deeper teachings, right? When you get into the heart, and never believe anything I'm saying or anybody else is saying. You got to go to that heart, right? And find your space right now, right? Because I'm also on this path, and as humble as I can, I have some ideas and things like this. But I can tell you right now, I don't know anything at all. That's one thing I don't know. I've discovered things that seem to be working, things that I like in my life, and what I know is that I'm loved.
Yeah,
I know that I'm connected to everything now. I know that I'm connected to source energy with a spark in my heart. I know that humanity is all connected to each other. And I know the best way is not necessarily a revolution, because we've had many of those on the planet, right? Everybody talks about revolution, but think of the words again. Words are important.
Yeah,
revolve, right? Going in circles. We need an evolution of consciousness, right? That's why I'm so proud of the Canadian truckers of
Yeah.
being so peaceful, right? This is our way, right? Yes, of course, there's always going to be people in any group that are going to stand out or going to have nefarious ideas. Like we're talking about, what was the queen there, whatever her name is, that want to show up.
Romana, yeah.
Yeah, and burn a flag. And it's just these people that are just, and again, at the same time, this is where I've really come into is that we need great compassion for these people because they're in a state of fear and anger and apathy and hatred. And what heals, we can't heal that with what we did, right? And you got to remember, like, look at Gandhi. When he did the salt tax, right? It was the salt tax that day, right? He changed the whole planet that day. He only had 72 people with him that day.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, everybody thinks he must have had thousands. It was him and 72 people showed up and just took a handful of salt and said, we're not going to pay our taxes.
Yeah.
And that changed, right? So, with those peaceful demonstrations and stuff like that, they have all their cards have been played. We still have rights in Canada because of the charter.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for that. And thank goodness, that they are there because right now they're having a hard time because they'd want to roll. They want to, that you guys see the military officer? I sent you that thing. He was
I got that and I shared that.
Right? Like very brave on him and thank you. But at the same time, I was talking to my other officer friends. I'm like, as a military guy, and this is where I have to say, we have to prosecute him because we can't have the military falling apart into chaos, right? But I'm glad he said that and everything else. But he's going to have to pay for it. That's just live by the sword, fall on your sword. Good. We'll all be like, good.
Somebody had to say it.
Somebody had to say it, and he was probably told, dude, you're gonna have to fall on your sword. So thank you for falling on the sword for us. They're gonna make them pay, right?
Yeah.
But in the military, guys, you got to make people pay. We can't have chaos in the military. That's just how it
That's
works.
the way it is,
where-
man. I had to pay. I paid the piper.
As someone who's like grew up around the military but not in the military, I always try to remind friends and family who are in the military family is that you guys have your rules and that's great, but sometimes I think it's important for people not in the military to come in and go, you know what, once in a while
Oversight.
you need to change those rules.
Oversight. It is because it is a very tribal,
government,
right? It's
for
very
example,
tribal.
needs that. Where's the oversight in the government right now? And it's not
Well,
there.
I've been on Liechtenstein for years, right? Because I'm all about decentral government. I believe in a federal government, but I believe in more power to the people. People are smart, right? So I'd like to see our tax money held locally, and we hire our own doctors. We hire our own things, right down. You look at Liechtenstein before the pandemic, anyways. The average income was 150,000 US, and they've done that, right? So the federal government handles the big thing, international trade, all that kind of stuff. But power back. If anything, I used to be conservative. I was telling you too. I worked as a campaign manager for Blaine Higgs, everybody else, right? This has made me very much more libertarian, where I'm like, listen, man, I'm going to do me, you do you. Let's make some laws so we don't. But I don't want to know, don't tell me how to think or how I have to speak or anything else. And we need these freedoms, right? But we also need to live together. We need to have compassion that people are going to have different views.
Yeah.
And when you don't allow peaceful protests, right, which they're kind of doing here in Fredericton. They're trying to use the scare tactics, right? Then what happens? Then they create violent situations because people get frustrated. They get trapped in that anger emotion.
Yeah.
They're trying to control the situation. That's why they're calling names, everything. Get you angry, get you angry, get you angry. Because you're angry, you're not thinking, right?
Yeah.
You want to be clear-minded, clear-headed, breathing properly in a Zen space. You were saying you did Qigong?
Yeah. My background is like martial arts. I've always done it. I've never been a master level or anything. I think though is what I always embraced from a young age was the philosophy of it.
Yes.
I was in karate, and so I bought the Book of Five Rings.
Yeah, it's a great, fantastic book. Yeah. Well, I was karate too, Shotokan.
Okay, me too.
Yeah. So I became a knee down in Shotokan.
Okay,
yeah. But that's my roots were traditional, right?
And
I love karate because I love and I didn't understand it till I was actually older. I was like, whatever that energy stuff. I just want to learn how to punch and kick at first, right? Do the forms and all that kind of stuff. But as I went through, it was really, when you think about it, it was the Buddha that brought that, right? So, for instance, the kind of teachings that I follow is from what we call, he's an ancient Buddha, not the recent Buddha, but an ancient Buddha whose name would be Avalokiteshvaraya, the one that hears the sounds of the earth, the cries from the earth. He lives in the Western world in this Pure Land, but he hears our cries, right? So he's known as not really a sex, because it's like in the Buddhists, they don't really have the God image, but more so kind of like he's a Maha Sattvaya, which means he's an enlightened being.
Right,
kind of looks
right.
back at us and says, "Hey, how you guys doing?" Once in a while,
Yeah.
and kind of sends the energy and stuff and the teachings, right?
Yep.
So kind of like in martial arts, you would bow to him as a master, and
Sure,
he's
sure.
he's farther along the evolutionary spiritual path
Yeah.
in one way that I don't really understand or know, but in a way that I know that has brought me great peace.
Right.
So because it's really this kind of journey where we use him. The true one is the Amitabha, which means pure consciousness, the Western land Buddha. And life is like a current, right? It's going through that river. And if you're swimming, it's very challenging, right? Because it's a very strong current, especially these
Right.
days.
Right.
Information is changing, everything else is going. So by doing a practice of yoga, martial arts, mantra practice, sound practice, anything, you kind of build yourself a boat of energy that helps you get across to the other side, right? And whether it's whatever form, spirit, or creation takes to you, and we often see this in the sweat lodge, it's very important. You go to the creator as your choice. To really say we've made God so much on this planet in our image, right?
Yeah.
And we really don't know again, right? We don't know. So what we have to say to it, we have to respect each other's ideas on this stuff. Because how could you really? We have words for the outer experience, but for our inner experiences, we don't really have words.
Yeah.
That's why I studied Sanskrit. So, for instance, like Sat Chit, right, is the universal intelligence. Sat Chit Anand is the universal bliss that one finds in their heart, right? But it's deeper. They've had words for this because they've understood it's all about looking within because it's a holographic image. You're living here. This is Maya. So everything we do out here is an action. Action is karma. Karma creates consequence. So if we keep doing the same revolutionary thing as we were talking before, then what happens, right? It leads to more anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. So we need to evolve, right? We need to change our space. And what we're doing here is just great stuff like this, coming together, grassroots, keeping peaceful, being Canadians, and standing up to this, obviously, this system that you got to look at it from their perspective, though, right? So you got to see, first off, they want a good call every once in a while, right? So they want the best humans to survive. So from their perspective, they see too many people on the planet. They're just like, okay. So they're doing good from their thing, right? This is the problem I have with people that think they're good because they think you're good. It's really like having golden handcuffs, but thinking they're bracelets, right? Because you're attached to something good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go do good. Hasn't everybody, look at the world. Everybody's been trying to fix it and doing good for a long time. Maybe we need to chill out.
Yeah.
And slow down, which comes to my whole musical training, that whole side where it's methodology coming back to music, where in my guitar coach too is always saying, right, like, slow down. Yeah. That's been my whole, like, because even as,
slow is fast, fast is smooth.
Yeah, that was Special Forces right there, slowest math.
They say that's sailing as well.
Yeah, it's same thing, right? Like you just everywhere it's slow down because we're so intense.
10 times. I taught music for 20 years, before I got into selling cars and got sick, and now I'm getting back. And 20 times the lesson is just slow down. Yeah. And I like to say, however fast you think you can do it, you're wrong. That's just it. You think however fast, you're always wrong. You just always go a notch slower.
I learned that lesson today because I pulled out my shred books thinking maybe we're going to do some shredding. Probably not.
Oh,
we could do
shred on this.
Yeah.
You got to remember, we did it. So last week we did an episode, kind of a quick one, and we talked about shredding. We played a bit of music, and it's often associated with electric guitars and heavy metal and all that. But I got really into gypsy jazz the last few years. Right? And you want to see some guys shred. They're the original shredders. And there's no amp. There's no electricity. There's nothing but a dude, a guitar, and a pick. And look out. Or another one, the guy who's popular now is Tommy Emanuel. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him.
No.
He's an Australian fingerstyle master.
Yeah, well, I won't watch Estes Tones.
Okay. Yeah. He plays on the steel string. This
same
size.
Sort of thing that,
and
it's amazing.
It's a different kind of shred, right? And yet the neat thing is when they get playing so fast, especially when you get super, super fast, in particular, like say the heavy metal guys.
We can even say Mozart and Beethoven could have been shredders.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I would.
Well, maybe not them specifically.
I would say
I'm just
more
pulling names out of the fucking ether now. Paganini
was kind of the first shredder. He was the violinist, and he was stories that women would pass out at the concerts because he was this big, tall, handsome, redheaded dude playing music like no one had ever heard before. And of course, the vibrations and the sound. And I always think back then too, it wasn't just an amp. there was no amp, right? There was just a person. And, you know, it's different when you hear an instrument, real vibrations, real wood, you know, resonating through like a good vibe.
That's why an acoustic guitar is.
Yeah.
I don't want to say. Yes, it's so much better than an electric guitar. Like I love electric guitars.
It's different.
But it's just it's not that it feels better, but it just has a different quality to it, and it's more.
Well, I'm an
maybe
emotional tied to, right? Like my music. So if I'm in a power mode, right? Like I'm in like an energy kind of. I was talking to you before. I'm working with like a Dharma protector, and I might just try to clear some dark energy out of myself or something like that. Shredding and stuff like that. I've had bigger meditations playing my guitar.
Yeah.
You know, you could really go deep, and we're talking about the whole vibration. And
I used to play guitar
like,
for yoga classes.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable.
I mean,
just in space, man. Yeah.
Well, let's go to like at India, right? What do they got? Like the sitar. Yeah, the sitar.
Yeah, the sitar, and then the rhythm.
That's just a school of music that's just beyond. That's why the Beatles went there to learn.
Yeah.
And everything else to really kind of take that next levels, right? But again, back to the sound and the guitars and the shredding. Yeah, you guys should shred.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's so
play us some of that gypsy jazz.
I will. But what I was going to say, one of the things about the shred, though, right, is these guys will get super fast. But if you look at those techniques from like the top echelon, kind of those guys, right, when they break it down slow, it sounds terrible. Some of the patterns, like. Not all of them.
Well, it sounds too mundane.
Yeah, I've been trying it myself actually. And that's it. You just got to go with it, right? Because it's like it's the picking up here that's been new to me, right? But it's kind of like,
but it's like an illusion. It's like I don't know. Like
Mirage.
I do drink lemon juice straight, and I will eat a lemon. But bear with me for the metaphor. It's like you take lemon, it's too sour, and you have like just honey, it's too sweet. Yeah. And then water, you know, you give it to a kid, they're like, it's plain, I don't like it, or I love it, right? But you put it together and it's lemonade and it's this new magic. So there's this thing, they'll take these asymmetrical patterns. Well, I'll show you what I mean. I can't do it that fast, but like say let's take a number like, here, let's do 3, 6, and 9. So maybe I'll take this number. So there's 3. Oh, here, put this on so people at home can hear us.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, turn it out because you might just go nuts. Okay.
I dropped the ball on that one. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
My bad.
So I can't do it as fast.
We got to get
as
you a
those guys.
pop filter too.
But
just so
one thing
I
do know is I understand and I can teach it. I've taught kids to shred who can play 10 times faster than I can. But you know, this is just not my thing. But you know, it's once you see how they do it, it's simple. So yeah, we'll take like 3, 6, 9. So they'll go 1, 2, 3, and then we'll go with 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what would 9 go? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think of like 4 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's see if I can do it. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Maybe I'll do that. Then I'll do a double. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Crapped out, but you get the idea, right? And then they'll then when they build it fast, it doesn't even sound like it's
tricks your ears.
And then you move the number up to this one, and this one, and this one, and they get those, you know, like in 3 you can do. Let's see.
Yeah, that's a nice riff.
Then let's see. How would be another way? How about it go? There he goes. Anyways, you get the idea.
Yeah.
And then you put it together.
Weedly D. That's why we call it Weedly D whenever Louis goes off on his guitar. We just go Weedly D, Louis, Weedly D.
Some guys just have that knack to it. Like, I remember
Your fingers
talking
just
about
fucking fly.
fast twitch muscles versus slow twitch muscle. I think I'm definitely more of a slow twitch muscle guy because when I get into like rowing and stuff, I can do it forever. And when I get into working, I can just work forever. I've always been like that as a kid, and I can walk forever.
Yeah, it's like a diesel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've always said the same thing. I'm a diesel, right? It
Whereas
takes a while.
diesel.
Yeah.
And so if you have those muscles, some people are marathon, some people are the sprint.
Yeah.
Well, some guys really just have that, and girls, whatever, have that fast twitch lead guitar ability. Their hands will just go and they'll do it. Where I've always been a lot better at rhythm, and I can hold a consistent rhythm, and I'm used to and singing and playing. I do like country and blues gigs for like 4 hours straight.
Yeah.
Where the most metal guys is impossible. You can't do that for 4 hours. Nobody can, right? But it's a sprint. It's different, right? When I played in a death metal band, we'd do like a 45-minute set and just be done at the end of it.
Oh yeah, you would, because all that energy, because it's so much energy that it gets
Yeah.
released so quick. That's what makes metal guys so relaxed most of the time, right? Because they get out all of that pent out energy, and that's why I love what I call metal therapy.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you just gotta smash your head off a table. You know what I mean?
That's it. Yeah, it is. It's a different form of therapy, a different way, right? Whether it's a punching bag, going for a walk, or just jamming.
Don't forget to turn your volume up.
Let's see if we can try something with these sounds. Let's see, because we got 7 of them. And we got, okay, so this will be easy. So we got 7 chakras. There's 7 notes.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. All
Right,
you gotta
and
do is
there's
just
a
pick a scale.
chord that corresponds with each one. So the question would be, do we want to start with, let's see, red. What would would it be a minor or a major?
Well, it's always going to be a major,
Well, how come?
because it could be a minor. I'm just fucking with you now on purpose. I guess it would depend. Here, this is what I'll tell you. It depends on the mood you're in, because each chakra has both a major and a minor key. Just like every other scale, and you can also play it in there. So each chakra also has 7 notes within it, because you have 7 modes of every 7
Oh, I
scales.
like that. So check this out. We'll start with
Let's-
the relative minor, and we'll
What's
go
that
to the
called?
major.
Let's get fractal.
So
Fractal.
if I
Let's
play,
fractalize it.
so if we play A minor with our,
Fuck you. I'm just kidding.
can't even read my own reading.
No, I'm not.
Oh, I know why. Because I did
going
the order
on?
wrong. I
Yeah.
did lum in the bass, and then I would create a bum. So let's see if we did lum is A. Now this is where we get interesting. Everyone's got a major and a minor. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play the relative minor, then the major, and then when I go to the next one, I'll do its minor major. So let's see. I'll show you what I mean. So. Oh, I could have some
Yeah.
fun with that.
Well,
Okay.
that's a meditation right there. This is what we're talking
Yeah.
about, sound yoga, right? Like, it's just let the music do its work.
I
Whatever
might do that every morning for a while.
whatever
that
happens,
is
happens,
fantastic,
man.
You do that, 10, 20 minutes of that.
Yeah.
That will change your energy for the day. That's what I'm talking about, building that boat to go through the currents of life, right?
Yeah.
You take that time for yourself. You take that time to really build up your energy. And Christians, we call it put on your armor suit, right?
Yeah,
that
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
But that's really what you're doing. You're using sound, right? Everything's sound to build up your energy body that creation gave you, to build up your own fortress of energy, so that when you walk through, and remember, like energy attracts like. It'll change your day. It'll change your perspective, everything else, right? Because it's just that you're vibing at a different frequency, so that you're going to meet things at different frequencies. You can have those conversations that you want to have, right? Because it's about questions, right? Asking you shall receive is very important. So you got to ask what kind of questions we ask ourselves, especially when we get up in the morning, right? It's, often you'll get up and we still, anybody does it, but you're like, oh, what kind of Monday is this going to be? And then the universe has a way of showing you what kind of Monday that's going to be, right? But if
Yeah.
you're like, okay, what am I committed to this Monday, right? Okay, no, I'm committed to, I'm going to do my mantras in the morning and everything else. I'm committed to, when the kids come home, I'm going to read to my son tonight. I'm going to make sure I'm committed to that. There's little things, and I
Yeah.
start asking better questions in my morning. I have a better day, right? Asking that I shall receive, right? It's
Yeah.
really that own
Yeah.
personal conversation. And so just taking 10, 20 minutes of that music yoga like that, you will change your energy enough that will give you that shielding to kind of deal with what
Wow.
comes at your way, right? That's the
Interesting.
idea of it. This is the app of the body. You could feel it in your centers, right? You're so much more than what we are yet. And science will discover as we do discover, right? It takes a while. One thing we do not have in the West that they try to nail home in the East is that patience is a very high value, a very high virtue that we've seemed to have lost, right? We're like, oh, we've been in this pandemic for 2 years, but really there's been a lot of change that's happened in this 2 years, both positive and negative, right? And if you look over perspective, we have to have patience, right? We don't have patience. I don't have patience.
There's less
Surrender.
and less lately.
yeah.
The social media in particular. I really notice, because I've worked in retail a huge chunk of my life. Even when I was teaching, but even before that as a kid, I worked in stores and pawn shops and butcher shops and restaurants and bakeries and you name it, and customers have gotten crazy, and everybody wants everything instant, and they're complaining, and just, I don't know, I blamed it on Amazon for a while, but obviously that's just part of the bigger
attention
picture,
span.
right?
See, that's
right?
kind of counteractive
Yeah.
because Amazon would actually take you longer to get than going to the store and picking it out yourself.
But there's something about, I can sit home
Instant gratification
and
of clicking.
get anything in the world to me, and they'll come into a store and say, well, I can get that on Amazon, and get that delivered right to my door, and that's the whole thing. You don't have to do anything to get it, and there's no. So do they appreciate it? Then they get something cheap. Oh, you don't like it? Send it back. And for me, I always thought, like, well, don't you ever think about all the packaging that goes into that? I worked in warehouses for a couple of years.
Well, waste has been,
Holy-
it's something I noticed that men, that's something we share because I've been working with a lot of guys. And one of the problems we all have is waste. I don't know with your households, but I've always been with the kids and everything else. It's been challenging. It's something that I wanted to do less is waste.
Yeah.
And the Amazon packaging, because I'm sorry, it happens, right? And I try to support local as much as we can, and I actually don't even have an Amazon account, so I've never bought one thing on Amazon. I don't go to the big box stores. I'm all local.
I had a friend order some earplugs once because he was getting some.
Yeah, I know. I'll go
And they
down
weren't all
to
it
the
was
small
cracked up to me.
store
I was like, what?
Well, and that's the thing. That's why I don't order off of it, because I've never really seen anything of actual quality come from it.
I just
it's
didn't like the
useless.
fact that my business got shut down and all the wealth went to Amazon, Jeff Bezos.
Well, there you go.
Years
dude.
ago, I was when it came to my attention.
There's that also.
I wasn't
Yeah.
ordering stuff online, but when it came to my attention about how the warehouse workers were treated, I remember talking to my friends about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, do you ever worked in a warehouse? Do you know how it works? And most people don't. And I remember I used to work at Sobeys warehouse in Armagh when I first came back from out west. I got a job there. And you'd have to get, I forget the numbers, but it was, you get a list of all the stickers and stuff. And you're going to get all the stuff for your